took me 3 years to get this onto a book.
We're going to do it in 40 minutes. So, Ken, thank you very much for coming here today.
Oh, we're on, are we?
Yeah, we're on. We're recording. We're on.
Okay.
We're on. So, Ken, you started off life in quite a difficult manner, what I recall, when we spoke before.
Well, Shepherd's Bush wasn't easy to grow up in. And we just lived in a couple of rooms upstairs in somebody else's house. Nan and Grandad lived downstairs. They weren't a real Nan and Grandad, but we grew up with them. I was Nan and Grandad to me. We lived upstairs, had a bedroom and a bathroom and a bit of a lounge. Till I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't particularly well behaved son. From the ages of 13, 14, I used to come home very late, and eventually it was too much for my mum to take. So I more or less got kicked out at 15.
Right.
And that was fantastic because I was working all sorts of things. I was doing all sorts of things at that age. I was working for Bertram Mills Circus selling ice creams, and the Ideal Home Exhibition selling ice creams, and going around the streets with those things where you stop me and buy one. Ice creams, Walls ice cream around the streets. Plenty of money. And eventually I got a job by lying about my age, really, because I always looked older than I was. And I got a job in London working for a guy called John Heathcote and Co. He was Charles Exchequer at the time, but he had mills down in Tiverton. And so I spent a bit of time down in Tiverton in the mills, and then in Savile Row where the offices were. And then I got a job as a rep, selling biscuits for Huntley and Palmer's, and I did very well. I mean, I was going around selling biscuits for Huntley and Palmer's, and then because I did so well, they wanted to upgrade me. At the time, I remember being asked up to be upgraded, which meant I could join the pension scheme, which I knew you had to be 21 to be in the pension scheme. So I ignored all the letters for about a year, and eventually I got called up, and I was told that I'd lose my job if I didn't sign the form for pension scheme. I think I was 17, 18 at the time. And I said, I can't do it because I'm not old enough to go in the pension scheme, because you've got to be 21. And that didn't seem to matter to them, but they realised I'd been driving whilst uninsured. For several years, all over the country, I was sent all over the place, because you had to be insured. And that meant you had to be under their policy. You can drive at 17 then, but they insisted you were 21. So I said I was. So eventually I lost that job, and I was doing ever so well then. And I ended up with a wholesaler selling wholesale sweets, all sorts of sweets to sweet shops.
So your whole career path where you started was in sales, heavily in sales.
Never been in anything else.
How was school for you, Ken? Was you educated?
Well, up to 15. I mean, I think I hold the record at... I got into a grammar school called St Marylebone Grammar School on the Marylebone Road. And that was because my dad, who was a banqueting manager at a place down there, used to look after the headmaster.
Right.
And they got me an interview. And I didn't do very well at the interview. Because I can remember, and I've still got the letter that he sent my father saying, "Dear Henry, we will find him a place at the grammar school. He doesn't really deserve it, but because of you." Because when asked what he did in his spare time, he said he used to go around the park. He used to play around the park and in the forest and that. And I asked him a simple question, and did you collect things there? And he said, telephone numbers of girls. But I got into St Marylebone Grammar School, which was too much for me, really, and so I had the record of actually being the only person at that school, very high school, of not actually passing a single exam. So I couldn't do anything like GCSE. So I left, and I found a job in a company called Heathcote's, the one I've just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I worked there for some years till I found Huntley and Palmer's. I worked there for some years. And then a wholesaler going around the streets. I did that for some years. And then I got a job selling popcorn.
Yeah.
And it's all started there, really.
Yeah.
when I told the truth about my age and I got a decent car, and I was the rep for the Essex, East London and Essex. So most of the shops in East London, I was travelling around selling biscuits, and Essex. And eventually I was given places like Bedford and Suffolk and Norfolk, and I had a very big area. And as a salesman, I was good.
Yeah.
Eventually I became a sales manager for the company. I was 24 then. And I think it was a year or 18 months later, they actually, I became a director of the company because I had really changed the whole way the company worked. We went from a couple of reps to 22 reps and 2 sales managers, and I just travelled the whole country and abroad for export. And in the end, some of the shareholders wanted to sell, and I borrowed money, bought the shares, and eventually became the owner of a company called the House of Clarks, which owned companies like Butterkist, which one of them, Crusader Confectionery in South Norwood, that's Croydon, bought that company. And then I bought the only other company in popcorn called Pim's Popcorn from Watley Man. And it all grew from there. And then Great Yarmouth, I bought a company called Docra Rock in Great Yarmouth. So I had 4 factories, and I used to be in different factories every day. South Norwood, Dagenham, Yarmouth, and Alberton, Essex, where the other popcorn company was.
What do you think made you such a good salesman?
I don't know. I just like talking to people. I like meeting people. I don't know. I don't think anything makes you. I don't think you learn to be a salesman. You can learn to be a manager, but no, I don't know. It's just if you've got it, sales, talking to people. If you get on with people, if you like people, friendly with people, and you smile a lot, I think. Otherwise, it just comes or it doesn't.
I've noticed recently with business, you seem to lose that person to person like business because a lot of things done on our phones and that you sort of just cut out the middleman and it's all about the products rather than buying into the person. I
didn't have any of that because it wasn't around in those days.
Yeah.
But the mistakes you make is, I mean, I had 2 top salesmen, one in the north of England, one in the south. And the mistakes you make is they do so well, you promote them. And I promoted each of them to sales managers, north and south. And they just weren't very good.
Right.
Because they weren't managers. They couldn't manage. They each had 11 men to manage, and they couldn't. So I lost my 2 best salesmen people. And that's the sort of mistakes you make.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn as you go on with that. And I did that for a long, long time. And I retired. And in the end, the company was such a big company that American companies were trying to buy us because we had all these. But I moved them all into one in the end. And down in Dagenham, well, you've been there.
Yeah.
And where the factory was is now called Lewis Way.
Yeah.
Where they built the estate. And then I retired. I was 46. And my daughter was at a school that was going broke, going bust. And I had a company called Ken Lewis Business Consultancy. So I was doing consultancy work for, the bank actually, the Royal Bank of Scotland at one stage. I went and talked about management buyouts because I got the company, the Butterkist company, because I did a management buyout. And they were quite new at the time. It was something where you got together, managers, you put money together and you bought it between you. So I bought it between 4 of us, but I had the big share. And I was doing this locally in an office for different companies, one of which was a sweet company in South Wales, which I went and worked for in the end as well. But I retired at 46, and the school my daughter was going to was running out of money and going broke. So myself and my solicitor, close friend of mine, we just packaged together and bought it. I bought it. I had a 25% share in it, 25.1. So if you've got 25.1, you can have control over certain things.
Didn't they as well, when they asked you, they asked you for some money to help out, wasn't it?
Yeah. What I did was I put in enough money to buy 25.1% of the shares. And the idea was that we'd work it for 5 years. And I had to put in, I think it was about £500,000 I got from selling other businesses. And at the end of 5 years, they'd gone from losing hundreds of thousands of pounds to making profits, not sales, but profits of £500,000. So it came to the time, actually, And this was quite an unusual situation came to the time when I said, right, my 5 years are up. So you've got to give me back my money and you can have your shares back. And the shares were worth a fortune then, of course, against what we borrowed. And they said, no, we want you to stay with us. We wouldn't have made this if it wasn't for you. And I said, you're losing millions and millions of pounds. So our lawyers need to get together and make it clear you understand it. But they still insisted that I stayed with them. So I stayed on the board. And eventually they wanted to go and live abroad and they sold all the rest of the shares to me. So I ended up owning the company, which I still do. And I came back to work and I bought another property which gave me a second school. So we now have a nursery for children from 3 months up until they want to leave us 4 and 5 to go into the schools, and we educate them privately. It's private schools until they leave us at 11 years old. And that's been fulfilling. That's been good because I'm not an educator. Look, I've got nothing in education, but I've managed to pick some good people, good staff who do. So they each have a head and they each have a team. I've got 120 staff, and of course the worst thing's been COVID. Because it was an absolute nightmare keeping it all together.
Yeah.
But we've come out of it, never gave anyone redundancy, never lost anyone. Just, we had some backup cash which got us through it. And we're sort of recovering now. I think we're what you call in recovery. We're doing okay. And actually, every month that goes by, there's more people coming to us. I think there were about 8 private schools in our borough up until a couple of years ago. Now there's 3.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
I'm just going to take you back to the Butterkist Popcorn days.
Yeah.
Because I think you just glided over of how well you did with that. But there was a lot of hard graft that went into that as well, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah.
You sacrificed a hell of a lot to get to where you are today, which I think...
I sacrificed seeing my kids. I used to go away on a Monday morning, Sunday night or Monday morning every week. And in January, right the way through till May, I'd start in Scotland. I'd come home Friday nights or Saturday mornings, so I had the weekends. Other than that, my wife brought the kids out. And as I say, saw on weekends. And I'd go away from January till May. And by that time, I'd start in Scotland, work my way down, went to every customer we got in the whole country, ending up in Devon and Cornwall. So you work your way down. And then when I got to May, I'd done all the country. And then June and July, I would travel abroad because I was also my own export director. And although I went to the Channel Islands, Jersey and Guernsey, every month for 25 years, I also went to other places. Went to Israel on business and France and Italy, other places. But, it wasn't a lot of time at home. But I always said, when I met my wife, we've been together 53 years, we first started, and you could see there was a business out there to be had. I remember saying to her, I'll work my socks off for 25 years and then I'll retire and spend time with you. And we did for about a month or 2. Then I had to come back to work because I had to deal with the schools. So I'm probably working harder now, and I'm 80 next year, so I'm working harder now than I ever did. The popcorn business was just a joy. I mean, we just had so much fun. I used to be out probably every night of the week when I was away, wining and dining customers. And when I met my wife, I was 18.5 stone. So that's wining and dining out for you. It was just a wonderful time.
Yeah.
We didn't have aggravation when we went to see customers. It was easy. And then I think I was fortunate to leave at the right time because it became less honourable.
Yeah. If
you could shake hands with someone and make a deal, and they didn't have to go to a boss somewhere here. But I mean, my major customers were sort of all the cinema people, EMI, people like that, Rank, Woolworths, British Home Stores who aren't around anymore. I had a most wonderful 25 years in that business.
And your client list and the people that you met and the friends that you've made over the years from it all as well is insane, isn't it?
On Saturday, I had my Christmas cards delivered in August. Okay, always have done. I handwrite. There's a couple of hundred Christmas cards.
Yeah.
I handwrite a private note in every single one. When I was in business, especially in the popcorn business, I used to do a letter to every employee handwritten. And I still do these Christmas cards. And I would say out the couple of hundred Christmas cards that have just come in, about 50 of them would be people that I dealt with way back in those days,
Wow.
the 70s and 80s. So yeah, we had a relationship. We all became friends.
Yeah.
I mean, long after I left and long after some of these people retired, we were still having holidays together and having good times together. It was a very honourable time. It's less cutthroat.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. Do you feel like you're a cutthroat businessman, or is it just not that wasn't the way it was done back then? It was more honourable to what it is now.
Well, I don't know about now much because I'm not in business, but what I hear from my children, a couple of whom are in business, it's tough. You work at it, but you can't always believe what you're doing is going to come across or what the other side are going to be agreeing. I hear stories from one of my sons that he's done a deal and then a couple of weeks later he hasn't. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And I was fortunate the people I went to see had lots of reps and area managers and things, but the people I saw were very senior people at high level of commercial businesses who tended to be more honourable. And you make friends with people, well, then they don't cut you out.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of luck. I mean, to be honest, I came into businesses at the right time. I've had a lot of luck. And I kind of do believe the saying that the harder you work, the luckier you get. Kind of believe that as well.
I think it pushes you into the right circles as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think because you're with like-minded people. If you're running a big business, you'll be dealing with people who run big businesses. So you'll be with like-minded people as well, won't you?
And they help you along. I remember the boss of rank pushing me into becoming a barker of the Variety Club. And I was 24, and that was the youngest one. These days, they've got young variety, these days. But then they didn't. And I was a founder member of the Prince Charles Trust. And my wife and myself worked with Diana for some years on the children's charities that she was working on. We were a panel of 9, her and a couple of couples, of which my wife and myself were one, worked with her for many years. My house is full of pictures of us.
It is.
So the charitable side came into it. You know? Because you're in popcorn and sweets, everybody wants you, everybody loves you, and everyone wants something to give away for their charities.
Yeah, cool.
And kids, of course, sweets, popcorn, did a lot of that.
What's your most memorable moment within that whole time you was in that business? Is there one thing that just sticks out more than anything?
No, meeting. I mean, we were very involved. We massive parties we put on for 1,000 people at a time. We were very involved in personalities, sports personalities. We always used to have Bobby and Tina Moore at our parties with all our customers. In the Royal Lancaster Hotel, it would be. Henry Cooper came down to talk to people with us. He was our heavyweight guy. If you didn't pay your bills, we introduced him as. Possibly being at the Duke of Edinburgh's 70th birthday party, having many, many meetings with Diana because she was just a darling. I mean, we used to meet. Everyone used to say, she likes to be seen and everything else. But our meetings were late at night, going into early mornings in hotels that no one knew she was there. There was no press there, no people there. And I know everyone had different opinions of her, but she would never let anyone know where we were. There was a guy called Jim Marshall who used to be with us. He's passed away recently. Marshall Equipment. You'll see his name on all the big musical instrument things. Mm-hmm. And that was a joy, that was, because we used to just do so much charitable work. I can't think of anything. I mean, I've written a book called Journey from the Bush. Did quite well in Australia, but I don't know why, because I come from Shepherd's Bush. Right? So the guy who did it and asked me similar questions and said, at the end of that book, which I think you've seen, he wrote to everyone that I knew without me knowing and asked for a quote, and I never saw any of them till the book was published. But when he asked me, what in life, what do I think I would have liked to have done more, or done better, or whatever, the only two things I could think of was I wish I'd met my wife a little before. And I wish I'd learned to play drums properly. And really, if I missed out on anything, it was not spending longer with her, because at the age we met, and that I've never taken it seriously. I mean, for my 60th birthday, my kids bought me the biggest set of drums you can imagine.
Yeah.
Big, and I tinker around with it. I did a little bit. I did a couple of gigs with. He's not around anymore. Screaming Lord Such. Remember Screaming? I was a Savage.
Yeah.
Screaming Lord Such and Savage is a little bit of that. Just now and again when others maybe couldn't turn up. But more recently, I played drums at my wife's 70th birthday party with a rock band, and we did a big party for the school. I was on stage with a different band the next day for a celebration with the school. I love doing that, but I never learned it properly. I got to grade 6 with someone who was teaching me at home. I can't remember grade 1 now. So, and I don't go up there very often to play.
Yeah.
And I love that. But that's the two regrets. I didn't do it properly. But if I'd have done it properly, I mean, I had a set when I was 15, 16 in a church band. But if I'd have done it properly, I wouldn't have been where I was now. I'd have just been playing drums somewhere, you know. But, yeah, that's what I think of. Anything that's more memorable, that it's just so much. I can't put one thing above another, really.
Yeah.
I just think I've been very lucky in life. Found a wonderful wife, got, as I always say, wonderful children and 6 wonderful grandchildren.
Yeah.
And that's all I need. This running a business these days, it's like a hole in the head. Really trying to keep everyone happy. Teachers, parents, kids are fine. Schools would be fantastic if there wasn't parents, teachers. It would be all right. But because the children are mostly passive and they're very responsive and they're absolutely darlings. I see children come into our school as nursery at 3 months old, and then I see them leave at 11. A lot of them come back, and because we had an awful lot of children from Fords, a lot of them come from America, but we get letters. It's just nice to know that you're doing something that is helpful to people.
Yeah. Just to interrupt you for a second, I just wanted to tell you quickly about our sponsor for the podcast, Fountains Media. Fountains Media is a creative content first media agency. We create videos, we do your photography for you, we've got a CAA approved drone pilot, and we offer full social media management. So you don't have to ever worry about when or what to post. Anyway, look, sorry to interrupt your podcast, but if you do want to check them out, check out all their socials. That is Fountains Media. Do you enjoy the education sector a lot?
I don't feel I'm part of the education section at all. I'm part of looking after a lot of children through the staff that I've got. I can't talk about education, can I? You've heard the beginning of that. And I don't go in and see children in classrooms and things like that. They all know me because my grandchildren have all gone there. So to a lot of them, I'm Grandad Ken. And to a couple of friends who we have there, youngsters, they always call Uncle Ken. So I can walk past a class and one of them will say, Uncle Ken's outside. And 30 kids will say, Uncle Ken's here. You know, it's just that I love. I love just seeing them grow up. I like to see their sports days. And my wife, Lynn, always says, our perk out of schools, we take virtually nothing out of it. The perk is having front 2 seats in every production they put on. I know some people say, well, surely that whole front row should just be full of parents. They're the ones with the kids there. Well, they are, except for 2 seats. And that's our perk.
Yeah.
Because it's just so enjoyable seeing them. We have some real professionals for kids. I mean, I've seen a production recently of 3 and 4 year olds on stage singing a song, telling a short story, all in French.
Wow, really?
Yeah. We are quite progressive. They learn French from a French teacher full time, not someone that teaches French, but a French teacher who taught French in France and comes from things like that. So that part is wonderful. I sit there thinking, my gracious me, I went to school till I was 15 and I couldn't speak French.
No.
So and we do things, and that's that part of it is wonderful to see sports day, children running around the fields, because one of our schools is 32 acres. The other's 10, and it's that is enjoyable. Going to productions, I think we have to get through about 6 productions at each school in 2 weeks at Christmas. So we're always wearing Christmas ties and watching it.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's what I enjoy, and that's what we do. We're there to support and help them if they need to be, and sometimes they do. But I can't imagine why I would retire. Now I've got family in the business.
Yeah.
And I'm there every day. And sometimes I walk in. Does anyone need me? No. Oh, okay then. That's it. I go. But more than likely, that someone will want something done when I'm there. The only thing they haven't got me doing yet is making the tea, I suppose. So
there's still an opening for that.
Yeah.
So what do you think will be next for you, Ken? Do you think the schools will just continue to grow?
Yeah, I think my daughter, who plays a very big part in it, speaks to me at least once a day and asks me questions about it, and pretty well everything we pass. I can't see. We don't know what's going to happen. We got through COVID really, really well. I mean, we didn't close. We kept people going, and we had to keep open for certain types of people. What was tough was so many people leaving for all different reasons. Mostly they couldn't afford it. Sometimes they just were scared to come to school. But in the future, I think if you've got a good school doing well, people want good education. Well, interestingly enough, from the south of England, it's not happened too much in the north or Midlands. South of England, people are leaving state schools to go into private schools.
Really?
Yeah. But I can't. Listen, I suppose the next step I've got to do is properly retire, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to stay away from the schools.
So you said you're going to be 80 next year?
Yeah.
I think it's about time to retire, Ken, isn't it?
Yeah, they said, I retired at 46, remember? I know that's my big failing. That's what my wife thinks. I'm sure she said before now, my biggest failing is I failed to retire. Because I did that time. I have retired from the schools partly, but I'm still there every day. But I don't interfere. I don't know enough. I haven't got the knowledge and qualifications to be involved in education. But picking good people, picking good staff, and they're fully qualified, because, this is crazy, private education. You have to be qualified to teach children up to 11. Ridiculous, isn't it?
Really?
You do in the state. And I know places that don't have qualified people. It's the one thing I did. When I actually came in, I made sure that it was qualified, because my daughter was still there. So, no, I don't know. I failed to learn how to retire. I say, when people ask me, the question you've just asked me, I say, okay, well, what do I do when I get up in the morning then? What would I do when I wake up and I get up and I wash and dress? I always go in my swimming pool. I always go in my gym. I have done this morning. So now it's 8 o'clock because I go in early. What do I do? I have breakfast. Okay, now what do I do? I wouldn't know what to do. I can't sit and read a paper. I can't watch the telly at that time of day. I don't know what I do. And I can't go on too many holidays. I've seen everywhere in the world I want to see. I mean, I had this thing I had to see 50 states. Well, I've been in every major city of all 50 states, and I've been to all 50 state capitol buildings. Well, I worked out there a lot. I mean, I was in the cornfields of America doing contracts for corn to bring it over to England to turn it into popcorn in those days. But what would I do? I can't think of what I would do. I can't sit around doing nothing. And my wife and myself have been together a long time. Yeah. And that's because we weren't living on... A lot of the time I wasn't there. Actually, your wife just asked me that question on the way. How come you've been together 53 years? What would you say? I said, that we weren't all together, all 50. I always came home, never sort of away for more than a week. And that might be part of it. I think it's partly that my wife just puts up with me. I think that's it. But I don't know what to do. When you say retire, I don't play golf. I don't belong to card schools. I've always been at home if I haven't been doing anything else. I can't think of anyone's got an answer to me yet, unless you have. If I get up in the morning, I'm tired, what do I do? You can only swim so much. Yeah. You can only lift so many weights.
Yeah. And you've run a marathon. So
yeah, that was bright. That was bright, wasn't it? My son, who said, I'll get you something for your 65th birthday. And it was a place in the London Marathon for Variety Club of Great Britain. We bought a coach for the kids. Yeah, I did a marathon, 5 hours 52, which wasn't bad.
I think it was fantastic.
And actually, my son beat me by 20 minutes. only because in the half marathon in Brentwood, I beat him by 20 minutes. And this was a couple of months later. Yeah, I loved it. I would absolutely love to do another marathon. The most exciting thing, especially in South London.
Yeah.
The South London people had something about them doing calypsos and singing, and you had to have your name on your shirt.
Yeah.
So you forget what you're doing when you're running, you're listening to music, but everyone's shouting, "Come on, Ken, come on, Ken," or "Come on, Joe," to bloke next to you. And it's a wonderful, it's like they know you.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous experience. And my wife said to me, at the end of this, because she saw me off, "You'll just say it's a piece of cake." And strangely enough, I did, because it was. I had done 1,000 miles in training, because you have to do 100 miles a month for 10 months. And that all goes back. You do your figures and all that sort of thing. I'd love to do that again. And I should have and could have done it a few years later, but I didn't.
Didn't you run home from the station?
Oh, yeah.
You did, didn't you?
And I didn't take the medal off for 2
No.
days. I came out, we all came back on the train to Shenfield Station. And we came out and we're all happy and seeing all the family were there, and some friends. And the cars were there ready to pick us up. And I couldn't do it. I had to get it out of my system almost. I ran out the station and up the hill, and I got at home with my medal. And for 2 nights, I actually didn't take it off.
Yeah.
And then went into school on the Monday morning with it on, and all the kids were waiting to hear what happened and how I did, you know. But I should have done it again. I mean, I've got past being able to do a thing like that because my knees, because I've really got bad knees. And according to all the medical people, they said it wasn't the marathon that did it.
It's the training.
It's only 26.5 miles. You do the 1,000 miles in training on hard roads. No one told me, do it in the park, it's softer, you know. Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. We did, I've done 7 marathons and an ultra marathon. And we tried to do 12 in 12. So we tried to run a marathon a month. And try. So I got 6. I did a marathon a month for 6 months. And I think the last 2 we did was in lockdown, and we did them on our own. Yeah. Just mapped out 26.2 miles and just did it ourselves. But although you think you're going to get fitter and fitter running that amount, you don't. It just tires and tires and tires you out. When I got to the last one, I was dead.
But I never thought about it. I just did it at 65. Well, I wasn't going to really do too many. I don't suppose you are now. So, I mean, you know, to do that was pure training, that's all. And it isn't that difficult if you really do the training.
No.
But I just never thought of doing it anymore. And then when I did, I thought, I can't do it. My knees wouldn't get me a mile. I mean, I'm on a machine this morning. I do 10 minutes, a slight jog. And then I've got other machines. But it's the weights that I like doing that keeps me strong. And I think my body's strong enough, but there's parts of it that wouldn't be able to do a marathon again.
What do you think gives you the drive, Ken?
What do you think did what?
What gives you the drive? What?
Well, getting up in the morning and having something to do, I suppose. I mean, I haven't got any particular ambitions. I want to go and do anything at the moment. Just see my grandchildren grow up. Because I've had the joy of seeing my children grow up to the ages they are now. 51, 46, 38. I've seen them through lots of things. The grandchildren, though, 21, 18, 15, 12, 9 and 7.
21?
Yeah, my oldest Brandon's 21, yeah.
Henry's 21.
Henry's 21.
Is he 20?
Grandchild. Yeah, Henry's son, Henry, is 21.
Wow.
And his sister, Yolanda, is 18. Well, you remember, you're thinking of 2 little kids, aren't you?
I am. I'm thinking of 2 little kids running around on your patio. I think they must have been about 7 and, I don't know, they were really young.
Henry's 6'4". Wow. Trying to get into Sandhurst now. He's been in Army Cadets ever since he went to school. Yeah, that's the oldest, 21, and the youngest, 7. Maddie's 7. So we have Henry and Yolanda, Phoenix and Caden, and Caitlin and Madison, 6. What I'd like to do is to spend as long as possible I can with the grandchildren, youngest upwards, if you like, because they've seen us the least. So we try to do things with them. We've just had a week in Corfu and took the 2 of them out there. Because, you know, we aren't going to have as long as them as we've had with the older grandchildren. You can never make it right. You can never get it right. You can never say, well, that one's only... How am I going to give that one a 7? What we've managed to give someone of 21, it ain't going to happen. But you do your best. I think getting up in the morning and having something to do matters to me. I've got to the stage where I don't need to eat a lot. I don't drink as much as I did. Health-wise, it's I may not drink for ages and then go out and have a wonderful party with someone, but there's nothing in particular other than I try to keep fit. I try to eat well to spend as much time as I've got with my wife, children and grandchildren.
That's amazing. Ken, what advice would you have for somebody who's just starting out in business and is as hungry as you for success? What advice would you give them?
Just work hard. As I said, when you say, and people say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. There's so many people saying how lucky you are. And now and again I do it. I say to my wife, aren't we lucky? And I think, hang on, no. I work like unbelievable. I mean, sometimes I wouldn't go to bed. I'd work on paperwork right through the night and go out in the morning. My neighbours used to say, were you up all night? But then she had the burden of looking after the kids and bringing them up and keeping them home. So I don't think we were lucky. I think we worked at it. But to anyone else, I just think if there's a chance you could pick the right job to go into, because don't forget, you're only at school for maybe 17, 18 years. If you're lucky, you go to university. But after that, you've got a long life ahead of you. You need to try and find something that you can work at, get into and enjoy. I just fell into it. I wasn't looking for anything. I just thought I could sell something to someone. And there's a saying that I made up many years ago in the popcorn factory, and the customers were coming around looking at what we were producing. And then I realised that nothing actually happens in the business world. Nothing happens in the business world until someone makes something and sells it to someone. Something's got to be made to be sold to someone at the end of the day, because there's nothing else happens. I think being honourable, keeping your word. I don't break my word, and I do my very best not to lie. I can't say I haven't ever told white lies, but I don't just go around lying for the sake of it. And I've always put down to that, not being scared of anyone, not being scared of anything, not being scared to try something. And all the stands and everything we've done in exhibitions all around everywhere, especially in Germany every year in Cologne, I've always said I would never ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do myself. So if there's a stand to be put up, I wouldn't say I'd decorate it because I can't do that. But if there's a stand to be put up, it's got to be reached, some heavy work's got to be done. I would never ask someone to do it unless I could do it myself or would do it myself. And your staff, they grow with you if they believe in you.
Yeah.
And if you slide off and take it easy, so will they. So I've never done that. I think that's it. Being honourable, working hard, choosing the right path in life, and keeping your word.
Ken, thank you very much. I know you're extremely busy, and I appreciate you taking a bit of time out to come here and do this for me.
I wonder what it was. I've never heard of one of these before. I don't know what I'm doing here, but for an old friend, I'd do anything.
Thank you so much, Ken, honestly. Thank you.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed the show. Just want to take this moment just to thank the sponsor of the show, Philby's Limited. So Philby's Limited, they do full refurbishments, developments, and anything in construction. They're a husband and wife team, very trustworthy, and their portfolio is just incredible. So if you're looking to have that refurbishment done, or you need your house built, or if you're looking for anything else really to be done within the construction industry, Philby's are your go-to people.